So I thought I'd make a quick video for you. Having a little fun, you know. Mage. It's a great comic book. Mage. It's awesome. I'm in the process of grading, and I was looking at the rhetorical analysis discussion, and it occurred to me that maybe I should take a few minutes and talk about rhetorical analysis and talk about the video that we looked at for practice as you're working right now today to meet deadline rough draft, and then start peer reviewing your rough drafts of your rhetorical analysis. And analysis is tricky. Analysis is not easy. That's why it's the third essay. It's the hardest. Now Abby, she does them in different order. She actually does rhetorical analysis before persuasion. She ends with persuasion. And she and I have been debating this. I wouldn't say arguing because we're friends and colleagues, but debating. Because I think it's harder to make the analytical arguments than it is to make arguments in a persuasive vein. They're both persuasive arguments. So you're persuading me to agree with your analysis. And then you're going to use evidence in your analysis to back up your claims. And you're still going to make claims. You're going to lead topic sentences with claims. You're going to have a thesis that makes a claim. It's not a problem solution thesis though, because it's an analysis of the thing that you're writing about. But when you say something like this video uses logos in this part, you have to explain how. You have to explain why. You have to put it in a larger cultural context. And for this assignment, you really need to think about the intended audience. Who's the intended audience? Now, often with the Chipotle, and I think I mentioned this when I set this up in the overview video. Often when students look at this, they say, well, it's Chipotle customers. Really? Does Chipotle need to convince their own customers to eat Chipotle, or are those already converted? Are they trying to reach non-Chipotle customers? And can we make that even more specific? Can we say that the audience it consists of, and when I say audience, this is, who is Chipotle thinking about when they're envisioning their ideal viewer? And these are people that want good food and might be getting sick of the mass-produced industrial factory food. And so they want something better, but they don't know how to get it, and they might feel trapped. The video speaks to freedom, and the video speaks to all sorts of different fears that we have, and so it leverages those, right? And I think it uses all three. I think it uses pathos, logos, and ethos. But how, right? So I'm going to see if this works. I don't know if this is going to work. Let's see if I could share like this. And I'm not going to just play the video because that's lame. But I am going to try to characterize this, and I'll back it up here. So it's set with Crow Foods, right? So Crow Foods is where our protagonist works. On the outside, everything is sunny and bright and has this false veneer. Right, and many of you in the discussion wrote about the fact that they're lying. Crow Foods are lying, right? But notice how, like right away in the video, he goes into the darkness, right? So he's obviously not motivated to work here, but he's got to go inside. He goes through, and it's a giant keyhole, which I would think about, what to do with that, it could be like the key to the truth, because he sees the inner workings because he works there, right? And there's these ever-present crows, which are the bosses, the controllers, the mocking reminder of how our lives have been taken over by this kind of industrialization, right? And he's literally, part of the industrialization. He himself is on an assembly line, right? So right from the beginning, it's leveraging a lot of different things. There's an emotional appeal because we're connected to the protagonist, this, and you have to say how, right? Just these moments in which we get his face, where I'm trying to find there, like this moment, and the expression on his face establishes our emotional connection to the protagonist. And so this is leveraging a pathos emotional appeal with us, right? But it's also leveraging an ethos appeal, because if we have a relationship with the protagonist, then we trust him. And we're going to trust what he does. And that's ethos. He's credible. And Crow Foods is not credible. And that's ethos as well. And we see that right from the beginning, as he's on the outside, and how, Crow Foods presents itself to the world. And then he goes into the inside and finds out what the truth really is, right? And it's nightmarish, it's dystopian, and it's frightening. It's a horror show. Look at the lighting, look at the colors. The crows have the red eyes. There's like something out of a science fiction film, like the Borg aliens or whatever. And then, the food is beef-ish, right? It gets stamped with, beef-ish. Um, and, this is not an appropriate time for me to tell you about AMR, but if you're interested, advanced meat recovery, look it up. It's interesting, right? And the general population, and a lot of the customers of fast food are it starts young to get you programmed and get you addicted, so that you'll continue to press the button for the pellet. It's all psychological. And so the general population is perfectly happy with this mass-produced food. They don't know anything different. There aren't any other choices. And so, and so the whole system reinforces this factory production of food thing that we're supposed to start to question, and we're supposed to look down on it. And that's what they intend with trying to persuade the intended audience. So the intended audience, are these people that are eating this crap, right? And just complacently going around, going on with their day, and they're almost robots themselves, because they're just complacent, and they're not paying attention. And the crow is like, yeah, what are you gonna do about it? The crows are very insidious, and there's multiple things that you could say about them. I don't want to say everything about this practice video in this short thing, but then there's a series in which he looks sort of behind the curtain, ignore the man behind the curtain, the whole Wizard of Oz thing, right? And we see the truth, that he didn't even see in the assembly line, right? We see the truth of how the food is made, like the drugs that the chickens are pumped full of, and then the strange sort of you know, going up in the scaffolding with the, I don't know what that is called, the thing that window washers have on the pulley, right? And he's being pulled up, and we see the grand and beautiful industrial world, the big metropolis that's created by Crow Foods and companies like Crow Foods, and we're supposed to start questioning this, questioning the worth of it and the value and the quality of it, right? Because maybe it's not as wonderful as we think, and it cuts back to him and the look on his face. If they properly establish this connection with us, with the protagonist, reinforces this, right? So we're definitely, trying to see the world through his eyes, and he gets farther up, and he peeks inside to see the horrors being done to the cattle, and then we move on from this, and he's very, very sad, but he feels trapped, right? And the younger self, is what's wrong, and this is maybe the ideal viewer, the person that can be persuaded to get out of this robotic assembly line, industrial production, and then there's even these hidden areas that we don't see, like there's this moment here at 147, where he encounters this thing that he sees and we don't, to open our imaginations to the other horrors that exist. And he can't even live near here, right? Because he doesn't make very much money. So he's got to take all these trains, and he continues to see the devastation to the landscape. This is just very powerful, right? That they're trying to present this, feeding the world thing, but they, decimate. It looks like a desert, it looks like a desert, and it looks like, a war zone. There's these crow drones everywhere, and it's horrific, again, like a science fiction film. And he's sadder and sadder and sadder, and we're supposed to have this connection, and so Crow Foods has lost their credibility. That's how ethos is leveraged completely. We should be persuaded by that, whereas his credibility is very high. But it's all logical. So we haven't really talked about logos, but the whole thing is very logical, the way it's set up. And so it appeals to logos in a variety of ways. The system is logical in the way that the food is mass produced, and the way everything is set up. It's logical that they hide what they're doing, and that they have a false persona of their commitment to natural and farm fresh and all this kind of stuff. Because we can connect to that. We understand. So that's also a pathos appeal, but we understand, that corporations and other individuals lie to us, right? And yet he does not. He's a very genuine, and very earnest, very sincere, and very upset, right? But this makes sense too, because of what we know about him, and so the whole world starts to make sense, right? And I'm leading up to the next part of logos, which I think is powerful, right? So he arrives home, and he lives out, see how it's all devastated, right? The trees are barren, and the fields are fallow, except for his little plot where he is obviously watered and is growing things. It's organic produce because, it's obviously very organic, right? And so he gets an idea. And of course, the idea is, and this is the first time we see him happy, right? Of course, the idea is the Chipotle leg logo, right? So, but it's subtle, and so he starts to, hey, this is a great idea. I'm going to pick all this fresh food. I'm going to go to town. I'm a happy-go-lucky, super happy, industrious individual. And so we can see he has a plan. And so this plan that's unfolding here, again, is an appeal to logos, right? because he's got to farm fresh produce. He's going to town. He's going to do something with it, obviously, and it's going to respond to the crow food situation. That's logical. It's also ethos because we trust him and we don't trust crow foods. It's also pathos because he's obviously happy and he's excited, and we're not in the dark anymore, and we're out in the sun, and we don't see the devastation quite as much. And then we see him active, and he just starts a little, you know, like a food truck, and makes the food, and it's fresh, and it's not mass produced, it's not in a box, and it's, you know, and the audience maybe, you know, like, look at that, you know, like the audience maybe is interested, you know, like maybe this is going to work, right? And we get an emotional connection here. It again leverages an emotional appeal. And then he shoos away. There's the first time we see him shoo away the crow. So he's no longer controlled by the crow. And you know, we get the final message, and we get the world, but there's a place within that massive metropolis for a better world. It starts small and it grows bigger. And so that's why we zoom out, and that's logical because we know that this is a metaphor for Chipotle. So we're to be persuaded. Are we persuaded? You know, are you rethinking your commitment to meat? Are you rethinking your commitment to how you get your meat? Maybe you just want to spend that extra money to try to get, you know, the stuff that's free range, you know, eat more wild game, you know, not eat the hormone pump full, you know, stuffed in a box, unable to move, inorganic, well, not that inorganic, but not as healthy and farm fresh, and good as we like to think, right? So these are the kinds of techniques that you have to think about with analysis. You know, it's looking at the content you have, analyzing the aspects of the content. Notice that I mentioned, you know, lighting, colors, images that we see, facial expressions, moments, you know, specific moments. I referenced many specific moments that I could, if I was writing a paper, describe in more depth. And I didn't even talk about the music. And I didn't even talk about Chipotle, you know. So if I was writing this paper, I would research Chipotle. You know, you got to have some cultural context, you know, and also I would say some things about the mass production of food versus grassroots efforts, you know, to have better and organic food, efforts to maybe not eat meat, because you'll notice he doesn't prepare any meat. It's vegetable tacos. Not that Chipotle doesn't serve meat, because they do, but he doesn't bring any meat to market. We didn't see him bring any cattle or pigs or anything, because that would be slaughter, and that would counteract our connection with him, right? So you have to look really at the specific things. You have to analyze, and you have to talk about how the things show the pathos. So notice that I started always by talking about the things, you know, that are shown, and then explaining how those leveraged an emotional appeal, which is pathos, or a logos appeal, which is logos, or an ethos appeal, or connected all of them. And so you go from the subject matter that you have to the analysis. You don't start with the analysis. One of the things students do that's mistaken about this assignment is they'll say, there's lots of pathos in this video. Yes, of course, but how, why? That sentence alone would tell me nothing. That's a terrible sentence. Don't write sentences like that. At least say the emotional connection with the Scarecrow provides pathos. That's better. But even that, we could probably do better than that, because I'm just free associating off the top of my head. Anyway, I thought I'd do a short video to try to give you some direction. I'll try to do another one either later this week or the very beginning of next week to kind of culminate the class. I decided not to put the screen up so you could just really see just how messy my office is. And something's got to give there. But we'll do a little outro. Thanks for paying attention.